whether full, rolling or flat, and Red 1 pulls the team up. He's indicating to me that he's starting the show full. And you can see that planned form of our world famous Diamond 9. As Reds 8 and 9 swing outwards to take the shape into 9 arrows. The team reaching a height of approximately 5,500 to 6,000 feet on the top of that loop, as Red 1 starts to bring them around to the left. Leading the team this year, we have a new team leader for 2024. He's been in the team previously for 5 years, before taking a break and then taking over the team this year. It's So actually 11 pilots in the Red Arrows. You have Reds 1 through 9 displaying for you today in front of you. There's myself, Red 10, former Tornado GR4 pilot, former qualified flying instructor on the Hawk Team Mark 2. And of course we are commanded by Officer Commanding Rafat, that's Wing Commander Adam Collins. He was my predecessor as Red 10. He's a former Tornado pilot and he also flew the F-111 while on exchange with the Royal Australian Air Force. We now see Reds 8 and 9 make themselves rearwards, and this year, earlier in June, we celebrate the 80th anniversary of Operation Overlord, which of course was storming the Normandy beaches. And in tribute to all those that took part, this is Spitfire.
Level, go, and fly.
On the right of Red 1 is Red 2, squadron leader Chris McCann. Chris is in his first year on the team. Out of training, he was taken immediately into an instructor role on the Tucano before joining the world famous 617 Gunbusters Concorde. Smoke comes on as Red 1 bends the team around to left. You can see that shape of the world famous Concorde. Smoke goes off and the command is given for all the teams to flex and make their way forwards. Reds 8 and 9 making their way all the way to the rear either side, and then 6 and 7 split. Get your cameras ready for the colourful Phoenix. In the middle of the right-hand side, uppermost as we look at it, is Red 4. That's Flight Lieutenant Ollie Suckling. He's in his second year on the team. He was Red 4 last year, and he remained as Red 4 to take up the affectionate role known as Uncle Ian.
Go, and fly.
Of that first row, all the way on the left-hand side is Red 5. That's Flight Lieutenant George Hobday. Also in the first year on the team, he's a former Typhoon pilot, having flown with 11 Squadron at RAF Coventry, where he has taken part in operations over Syria and Iraq, as well as the aboard call is made by Red 9 as Reds 8 and 9 roll around the rest of formation. Watch for the colour change as Red 1 flies the Tornado down the line. and 9 for the last time to capture them in that shape. From the right, the smoke comes on in the Diamond 9, the Red Arrows. As we go into the second half of the show, you'll now see a manoeuvre not flown since 2003. Get your cameras ready for the 5-4 split. You now see the team break down into two distinct sections. You have Reds 1 through 5 going off to your right. They are now known as Enid, named after Enid Blyton's famous 5 from the children's book. 6, 7, 8 and 9 to the left, known as Hannah, named after squadron leader Ray Hannah, one of the first members of the Red Arrows, the only team leader to lead the team for 4 years. He took the team from a 7 to a 9, and he also formed our trademark Diamond 9. In from the right, Enid. In from the left, Hannah. For the 5-4 cross. Keep your display as the Nat. The Red Arrows flew the Nat right away up until 1980, when we then took control of the Hawk T-Mark 1, which is still the aircraft that we fly today. And the Hawk is 50 years old this year, extremely agile, extremely fun to fly, and a lot of the pilots attribute her to a small sports car, great fun to operate. 8 and 9, the red comes on, get your cameras ready for the Hannah break. You have red 7 and 8 off to your left hand side, red 6 and 9 pass. You have red 8 and 9 pulling forward through and red. As the synchro pair disappear in our front, coming in from the left-hand side, descending is Red 9. That's Flight Lieutenant Patrick. And you can see Red 9 climbing up into the sky, smoking the red, the white and the blue, as Enid come off to our left-hand side, trailing once again our famous red, white and blue. The smoke comes on for the world famous Synchro Heart. And coming in from the top right hand side, you can see Red 8 as he spears the heart. Red 8 is Flight Lieutenant Richard Walker. Second year on the team, former Harrier pilot and former Typhoon pilot. Stood there with only 30 metres for the opposition barrel roll. As the synchro pair complete their barrel rolls, look in the distance to the left-hand side, and you can see Enid 1 through 5, and joined by Reds 8 and 9. Red 1 pulls them up once again at over 400 miles per hour, reaching heights over 5,000 feet. He'll turn them to the right. Get your cameras ready once again for the Vixen vertical break. coming in from the left and red 7 from the right. Once again, down at 100 feet, looking to pass each other wingtip to wingtip, only 30 metres, only 100 feet. Each aircraft completes a 360-degree aileron roll. The colour comes on, he'll complete a barrel roll in the sky, leaving a snake-like smoke trail in the sky. In the first part of the manoeuvre we now call the Serpent. And once again, the team trailing our famous red, white and blue. That red, white and blue is only capable due to the smoke pod underneath the belly of the aeroplane. That smoke pod is capable of producing approximately 5 minutes of white smoke, 1 minute of red smoke and 1 minute of blue smoke. And each of the colours has its own selectable button on the pilot's control column. Of course, Red Arrow is extremely proud to fly all across the UK, Europe and across the world. And later on this year we will fly the red, white and blue, doing Great Britain proud as we go to Canada and celebrate the 100th of the Royal Canadian Air Force. And immediately starts to push, and he completes an inverted barrel roll. So Red 6 now working really hard against those negative G, all the blood rushing into his brain, and with Red 7, 8 and 9 holding on to complete the mirror roll. And Red 7 and 9 complete the mirror roll with a roll back. Clear goes, Reds. 4 and 5 roll to the outside. In one of the hardest manoeuvres for our new pilots each year to master, this is the rollbacks.
Go.
It's the 60th anniversary break. Keep your eye on the red. Synchro pairs depart to our rear, look directly to your front, you can see the nose lights twinkling in the distance. For the Vixen break. Teignmouth, it's been an honour and a pleasure. Please put your hands together for the 2024 Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team. It's the Red Arrow! On. Now, back in the day, there were a number of helicopter teams who used the Gazelles, the Royal Navy Sharks, and of course the Army Air Corps Blue Eagles, who started their display with a very similar manoeuvre to this. Braking from box 4 into 2 pairs, moving left and right.
They were of course used in all 3 services of the armed forces for various roles, for pilot training, battlefield observation, light transport, reconnaissance, and in the case of the British Army, it was used as an air observation post, directing artillery fire onto the enemy.
As you can see, the lead aircraft, very straight probes sticking out the front. That's because this particular aircraft is in the cover scheme of the Empire Test Pilot School, where it was used as both a training aircraft to teach test pilot. And that probe sticking out the front had all sorts of air data equipment on it, which fed back to the pilot exactly what the aircraft was doing. So the Empire Test Pilot School
based at Boscombe Down, produces test pilots literally for the world.
And that particular aircraft was at the Empire Test Pilot School between 1991 and very recently, 2016, at Boscombe. The second aircraft, which is on the right, is an ex-Royal Air Force craft, HT3 from RAF Shawbury, and also from the 27th Squadron, which is the Chinook, still is the Chinook Squadron. The registration Zulu Bravo 627. Because of course the Chinook Force also used the Gazelle for daytime reconnaissance runs on low-level navigation routes that would be flown by the Chinooks later that evening. And it's a much cheaper alternative, obviously using the small aircraft than using the much larger Chinook. And uniquely, this particular aircraft sported this fantastic all-green livery for a number of years and was only resprayed last year to recreate it.
Number 3 aircraft you can see. Again, a training aircraft from the Royal Air Force, an HT3, originally delivered as XZ934, sold into civilian use in 2002. Joining the team 2 years ago, I believe, that airframe.
Last but not least, number 4 at the back was originally a Royal Navy 705 squadron machine, built in 1975. Indeed, today's highlight, Nev Matheson enjoyed his first helicopter solo flight in this airframe back in June 1983.
As I was saying, the leader, Jim Richards, very old friend from the Blue Eagles, and not sure I should tell you this. Nah, I'm going to tell you this. The rule book said he didn't do a fly helicopter with no tail rotor. Number 2, Andy Wellesley, flying for over 40 years, again from the Royal Marines and the Army Air Corps. Flew both the Gazelle and the Lynx in the Falklands, Belize, Bosnia, Cyprus and all over Europe. Over 2,000 hours on Gazelle. Number 3, Andy Usher, again from the Royal Marines, served in the Falklands War, both Gulf Wars and twice in Afghanistan, with 3 tours in Northern Ireland in between. Now a commercial pilot in the corporate VIP sector.
Keeping a pedal turn, a 40-degree nose up with a rotation to the right, followed by a wing over. He's now going to complete this steep turn to line up through the middle of the formation. So get your cameras ready for that one.
So that's right, 1 from the left, 3 from the right. And that one on his own is Kev Matheson. He's also the team manager. He joined the Royal Navy in '82. Flew 4 different types in service, including the Gazelle, the Seacon, the Merlin. And with the United States Navy, their version of the S-76, the Seahawk, flew in the Sharks display team during the 1990 season as number 4 and as the solo position, so very, very well qualified to do what he's doing now.
Join up with the other 3 guys and then position into Concorde formation.
Makes a perfect trainer for the same reason. And an awful lot of Gazelles are still in service with civilian owners because it's fast. That Astazoo turbine engine, I mean that's 1,200 horsepower coming out the back of that. Makes it very powerful, very easy to control, very easy to manoeuvre, very, very responsive. It really is a pilot's aeroplane, the Gazelle.
And those propellers are at 365 miles an hour.
The team themselves operate from their barracks based at Landsmead Airfield. They're wanted. And we've heard what they're made of ex-Army Air Corps, Royal Marine and Navy pilots. And additionally, they're very lucky to have volunteer ground crew
Really,
to
really
give
good
it their
stuff to fly.
I believe the pilots also say she doesn't really have any vices either. All the pilots that fly this aircraft seem to love her, and all these pilots are united in the love of this aircraft, and that's why they give up their time voluntarily to fly them at air shows for us.
Running straight in towards us, ladies and gentlemen. Get your cameras ready. On the right. Now that means the exhaust goes through the rotor and is dispersed, and it was a way of stopping heat-seeking missiles from tracking the aircraft because they couldn't see it. The wash from the rotor mixed cold air with a hot engine exhaust, so heat-seeking missiles couldn't find it.
And that high-pitched whine that you can hear
To vary the pitch of the blades, to vary the amount of yaw by using the rudder pedals at your feet that you're giving the aircraft. But what it does is it makes it much safer to operate on the ground because the tail rotor is hidden inside this tube through the tail. So there's very little danger of somebody getting hit by it.
Yeah, the fenestra, and that derives from the French word fenêtre, meaning window.
So, ladies and gentlemen, unique in all the world. On the left, Team Gazelle and Team Raven. Aircraft at home. Doesn't look like it as they run in. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Raven. Starting off with the formation loop, as I said, the name Raven comes from the letters of their aircraft, which is an RV8. It's something that weighs less than a Mini. Can you imagine a 200 horsepower Mini car?
I'd love to have a go. But yeah, they're home built as well, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so. Nearly all of the pilots here today either built their aircraft themselves or bought them off somebody they knew who built them. They're all kit aircraft.
You could actually make one of these aircraft from scratch if you bought the kit. But of course these particular aircraft have been modified with the smoke systems that you can see.
The Vans company started out wanting to build light aircraft people could afford. Because the kits are not that expensive, believe it or not. You're looking about 20, 25 grand. More than you pay for second-hand BMW, for instance. You have an aircraft instead of a car. How cool is that? But what he wanted to produce, instead of an aircraft like one of the Pipers or Cessnas, which are very good training aircraft, but let's be honest, about as exciting to fly as a rice pudding. No, he wanted to build things that were fun to fly, that were semi or fully aerobatic in this case, that had a bit of performance edge. So 200 horse, weighs less than a Mini, this is what you get.
Not a beginner's aircraft though, is it? It's a tail dragger, which is more difficult, I would say, than the usual nose wheel formation of aircraft. That's a nice picture there. I learned to fly in the mighty 172, 182.
Now that's beautiful. So the four-ship performing the Apache rolls with the solo off the back of the formation, rolling around them as the two solos cross in opposition. It really is a fully professional display outside Peter Wells. Now Peter Wells has a wonderful description of himself. He's a self-confessed air junkie. Not quite sure what that means, but he's done over 6,000 hours of flying, all of which are on tail draggers. And believe it or not, made his first solo in a glider at age 16. Raven 3, Barry Gwinnett, very experienced, what we call a GA, General Aviation Pilot. Been pulling up for a fan break there. Been a PPL, as I said, Raven 3, been a PPL for 36 years, where the 2003, the 757 and the 767 have recently transferred onto the Airbus fleet with the A321 and the A320. So, as I said, not a full-time aerobatic team. They've all got what they call proper jobs. So, there is always something happening in front of the crowd, which is the mark of a really professional display. Formation in separate parts means you can see the performance of the aircraft not only in formation, but also when he's able to chuck it about a bit more. Main body of formation disappearing behind the pier here, as they're pulling up for a thing they call a corkscrew. Rather lovely thing to fly training to do that. So you're sitting in the centre with this fishbowl around you.
Okay, your camera's ready, because they're just completing the heart with the arrow. Oh. The left now, keep an eye out for this.
Just getting into line of rest. Now that's the hardest formation to fly, because you can't look where you're going. The only one who can do that is the leader. Everybody else is looking at him.
Now they're peeling off one at a time. And this is the quick one.
To begin his display proper.
That was the speed access, which is his wing over at 225 degrees towards the crowd.
Now you can see here what I was saying, just how short this aeroplane is, but look at the size of the rudder of the elevators. It requires a great deal of finesse to fly this aircraft this accurately. And while I was comfortable with it in the air, I could never land a thing. Banked about all over the place like a pea in a drum.
It's very light as well, isn't it? Because you've got a 180 horsepower engine. This one is very light frame. It provides it with great performance to give it ultimately this spectacular display.
Yeah, the pit started life as an aluminium frame covered in fabric, The more modern versions, of course, have carbon fibre and glass fibre wings, but they're very much stronger than the earlier versions. But do you want to know the weird thing about this aeroplane? It was designed in 1942 by a man called Curtis Pitts, and it was designed for a female aerobatic pilot called Betty Skelton. Now, Betty wanted an aeroplane that she could win aerobatic competitions in. Now that gives you an idea of just how big the American aviation industry is, because 1942, we're in the middle of the Second World War, and yet they were still holding air shows and aerobatic competitions, and small companies like the Pitts Company were still building aerobatic aircraft, even though you're right in the middle of the Second World War. That's how big American industry is.
And I like the fact that when Curtis Pitts built these new aircraft, as they were then, they were called stinkers because he put pictures of skunks on them.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, because when Betty went to him, she said she wanted an aeroplane that was a little stinker, absolutely as manoeuvrable as he could possibly make it. Beautiful still turn there from Ian. And that's exactly what he did. So he built a biplane so he could have a large amount of lift from a big wing area, but very short span. And he's got an aileron on each of the four wings, so its roll rate is phenomenal.
So like it's a biplane, it's got those two wings in simple terms, that gives it the extra lift.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you've got the same advantage of a lifting area of a much larger monoplane wing, but crammed into a very small space. So those ailerons feed right out of the tips. They're very, very effective, and they give it this spectacular roll rate.
It's almost as wide as it is long. The wingspan is 17'4", and the length is 15'6".
Yeah, like I said, it's tiny. I know a lot of people used to build pit specials, the single-seat pit specials like this one. There is a two-seat version, which is a bit bigger. They used to build them in their garages. In fact, I know one guy who actually built one in his living room. They had to take the window out to get it out, but he actually built it in his living room. I always wonder what his wife thought of that, to be honest. As I said, when you're coming in to land, because you can't actually see the runway, and you have to land it sideways. Not a natural thing for anybody to do, to be honest. Now, 180 horsepower in a very lightweight airframe means you've got this enormous vertical performance. Another beautiful stall turn there. Stall turn, very simple. You pitch up to the vertical. You wait until the aircraft literally has run out of airspeed. Just before then, you put on full rudder and it literally pinwheels around its own axis. Out onto the V, pulling back for a loop away from us.
And the G limit on this aircraft can do up to +60 and down to -3. Ooh, that's going to hurt.
Oh yeah. Positive G, ladies and gentlemen, all your blood, everything in your body tries to get into your feet. Negative G, it all tries to get into your head. Now that's a lot more uncomfortable.
And of course not wearing D-pants in this aircraft like the pilots of fast jets are, and certainly like the flying suit that Turbo will be wearing. I've talked about that before. I think air shows are so important that it introduced so many of the younger generation, well of any age really, to aviation and the amazing things that you can do in the air. Now he's coming along to do another knife edge pass. You get some lovely shots of the upper side of the wings here. So shortly after leaving school at 18, Ian got his pilot's license. And following that, he went straight home to get his aerobatics endorsement as well. He loved it so much.
Competition and championship winning aerobatic pilots. As I said, Tom's flying since '83. running in straight towards us to start their display. Ladies and gentlemen, the Starlings. Starting off in echelon formation for a crooked loop from the B-axis onto the A. These, as I said, the latest version of the Extra 300, 330 horsepower sitting in the nose of these things. The airplane made entirely of carbon fibre and glass fibre. And you're sitting in a leather-bound couch, really, to be honest with you. It's not so much a seat, because you're leaning backwards at 33 degrees. So you're almost lying back in the aeroplane with your head, you know, great big polycarbonate fishbowl. So the view out of this aeroplane is extraordinary. They can see you as well as you can see them. So do give them a big wave as they go past. When you go to the Dinslogen factory to pick up your brand new Extra 300, you're taken round, and one of the things they show you is the skin on the wing and the tailplane, which is 0.3 of a millimetre thick. Pure carbon fibre and a glass fibre weave. And while you're sitting in the cockpit for the first time, Walter Extra, the designer and owner of the company, is showing you around the aeroplane and showing you where everything is in the cockpit and explaining how it all works. You notice while you're concentrating inside that his voice is getting further and further away. And when you turn around to see where he's gone, he's standing on the end of your brand new tailplane. Remember, 0.3 of a millimetre thick, and he jumps up and down on it. Walter Extra is not a small man. And he turns around and says to you with a huge grin on his face, you see, this will break you a long time before you break it. They are incredibly strong. Stressed to plus and minus 23 G. Now if you consider the maximum G any human being's ever withstood is 16 G. And that was in a medical centrifuge, and like for a few milliseconds. Then it really is comforting for the pilots to know they are going to break themselves a long time before they break the aeroplane. Now, aside from being extremely light and extremely strong, this is also phenomenally manoeuvrable. The ailerons run right from the fuselage out to the wingtips. The tailplane has an enormous elevator and rudder. And right here and now, they're doing some formation aerobatics, just to show you how close they can fly these things together and how accurately they can fly them, given the finesse of those controls. But in a minute, you're going to see them split up, and that's when you'll see what an Extra NG really can do. Because of its incredibly streamlined design, this aircraft not only extremely strong and light, but also very, very fast. Cruising speed 170 knots, that's about 195 miles an hour. And as Tom was saying earlier, that means the team are now able to do far more shows because they can travel around the country in a day. Just effortless vertical performance. Now, I'm very lucky I got to fly both the original mid-wing version and the low-wing version of this aircraft. The S and the L. Never flown an NG. But all I can tell you about flying an Extra is you don't get into it. You put it on. When you're airborne, stunning aeroplane. Rolling and on the cross. Now you saw there, the
Then they revert to looking at the back of their own instrument, you know, the person who's following.
Absolutely. So you go from concentrating on the leader, concentrating on what you're doing, and then back again. Pulling up here for the Starlings heart.
That's our third heart of the day.
Sorry, I do beg your pardon. You're that wrong. Tom flying up there. I'm coming around past you. Now watch this. A series of hesitation rolls, full rolls and half rolls. Again, showing you just how accurate the controls on this aircraft are. Tom diving down, picking up speed. You get up to about, somewhere around about 300 in this. If you put full power on and stick the nose down. Now watch this. So ladies and gentlemen, there you see a Loncevac, which he stopped, held up, so he's now basically doing what's called a torque roll at the very top, before letting it decay and falling out the bottom of it. Now Loncevac was a manoeuvre introduced at the 1966 World Aerobatic Championships in Czechoslovakia. And it is a Czechoslovakian word which describes the sort of headache you associate with far too much plum brandy.
Yeah, I play it. You know what the red arrow is?
Letting it decay there out of the second tumbling manoeuvre into a flat spin, and yet recovering it instantly. It doesn't matter what you get the aeroplane to do. All you've really got to do is push the nose down and have power to get out of any manoeuvre in this thing. That's how overpowered it is.
Yeah, you get race. And then you've got just up.
And look at that. Starts the salmon lead, sort of power on stall turn, letting it decay into a tumble and then into an inverted. I don't know if you call that a spin or not. It was more like sliding sideways with feather on. That's the only problem with these aircraft. They can do such weird and wacky things that you don't really know what the name of it is. Now doing ailerons there on the way up, aileron rolls, and letting it decay there into a knife-edge flick. Now, normal aileron rolls, deflect the stick and goes round about 400 degrees a second in this aircraft. So you're doing more than one complete roll a second. If you do a flick roll, you yoke the stick back about a bagger's foot, about 5 pounds. So you take about 5 pound back pressure on the stick, and then kick on full rudder. And you've seen already from this manoeuvre how powerful the rudder is. You can just hang it up at the top of the vertical. But when you do a flick roll, suddenly you're doing 600 degrees a second.
And what sort of G will the pilots be experiencing through this display?
Anywhere between +9 and about -5.
Wow.
Yeah, no G-suits, but you're lying back. That's the whole point of the seat being reclined, 33 degrees. You can always tell a flick roll from a normal roll. Aileron roll, they fly in a dead straight line with roll. Flick roll, tail tends to sit down a bit because you've taken that yoke, and then the tail goes round in a circle. And just look at the size of these manoeuvres. It's just effortless. Oh, flick roll at the top there. Now he calls that a solo half because he does a loop with a flick roll at the top and there's a knot in the top of the loop. It looks a bit like a half. Very nice. Aileron roll on the way towards us there. Now into knife edge where he's flying sideways. And again, even though he's in knife edge, you can just kick it. That's how big that rudder is. Absolutely right. As I said, they can see you as well as you can see them. So big wave to them, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Tom Gazelle and Mike Pickett.
Are you ready? Here she comes! from air policing, anti-support, through to high-intensity conflict.
Yes, until...
Really is an all-rounder. Provides the RAF with an agile and highly flexible aircraft that significantly enhances the UK military's war-fighting capability around the world.
Is this the last ball?
Currently, the quick reaction alert Typhoons stand at immediate readiness to protect sovereign airspace both here in the UK and in the Falkland Islands. It almost looks like it's hovering there. There is quite a strong headwind today, but that's quite amazing control of that aircraft.
The aircraft is totally unstable, so if it weren't for the computer, you couldn't actually fly it. So